Being remembered. To begin, get out your lab notebook and settle into a comfortable position. And give yourself permission to take a few deep breaths. And as we move throughout the experiment, you might notice that your attention wanders away. Maybe your attention gets caught up in thinking about your past or planning for your future. And when this inevitably happens, just simply bring your attention back to the experiment. Just letting go of those stories about the past or the future, if only for these few minutes that you run this experiment. And in that way, allowing yourself to simply be present and being curious and open to whatever arises in each moment. So, for this experiment, we're going to begin the process of discovering what it would mean for you to live a more authentic life. And as many others have observed, including the psychologist Alex Wood, the behavioral scientist Francesca Gino, and the psychologist Steve Hayes, one central aspect of living authentically involves aligning our moment to moment behavior in a way that's consistent with our values. So, before you can align your behavior with your values, you need to answer one fundamental question, which is, what do you value? We also need to define what we mean by values, and the definition here being those aspects of your life that you care about the most, those qualities of living that you choose, not because other people like your parents or teachers or your friends have told you that you should value these things, but because you care deeply about these qualities, because that's the kind of person you want to be, the kind of life that you want to live. Now, one method for exploring our values comes from the work of the clinical psychologist Steve Hayes, that I just mentioned, and his colleagues in their development of acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT for short, which is a science based psychotherapy with the ultimate goal of helping us live lives that are more consistent with our values. So, to start this exploration, go ahead and take a few moments to think about the people that you care deeply about. These might be people that you love or respect, perhaps people that you deeply admire. Take a few moments to think about who are these individuals. Just being curious about whoever's appearing in this moment. All right. And now go ahead and take a few moments to actually write down the names of whoever came to mind, the people that you care most about. You can write this in your lab notebook if you have it. And as I'll continually mention in this experiment and future experiments, always feel free to pause the experiment if you need some more time to write before we move on. All right. And now imagine that you're attending a major life event. This could be a graduation, maybe your own wedding, or if it feels comfortable to you, it can be particularly useful for this experiment to imagine that your life has ended and that somehow you're able to be present at your own funeral. And so, whichever major life event you choose, really imagine being present at this event. giving yourself permission to truly connect with any thoughts and emotions that may come up as we continue this experiment. Okay. And now go ahead and bring one person to mind from the list of people you deeply care about that you wrote down a few moments ago. You may notice that a few individuals are coming to mind, and if so, that's totally okay. Just go ahead and choose one person to focus on at this time. And when you've settled on that one person, take a few moments to visualize their face, perhaps imagining that you're looking into their eyes. And you might bring to mind a time when you remember seeing this person extremely happy, maybe imagining them smiling, possibly hearing their voice, maybe even the sound of them laughing. And now go ahead and imagine that this person is attending your major life event and that they stand up to make a speech about you as a person, about the kind of person that you are or were, and the life that you lived. Take a few moments to consider, what would you most want this person to say about you? Even if you feel maybe you haven't lived up to your full potential in life, really let this person say exactly what you would most like to hear from them, what you would most like them to say about you and the life you lived. Really giving yourself permission to truly be honest about how you most want to be remembered. And you might imagine hearing these words in this person's own voice as they speak about you. And when they finish speaking, take some time to write down exactly what you heard this person say. And again, it might take a little while, so feel free to pause the experiment now and write out whatever you heard before we move on. Okay, and now go ahead and bring a second person to mind from your list of people that mean the most to you, someone different than the individual that came to mind before. Once again, if a few individuals come up, that's fine. Just settle on one person to focus on at this time. And once you have that person, let's go ahead and repeat this exercise of visualizing this second person's face, possibly looking into their eyes, imagining them at their happiest, hearing their voice, and now imagining that the second person stands up at your major life event to make a speech about you as a person. Now, with the second person in mind, what would you most want them to say about you and how you lived your life. What would you want this person to remember you for? And you might again imagine hearing their words in their own voice as they speak about you. And when they're finished speaking, take some time to write down exactly what you heard this second person say about you and the life that you lived, about how you want them to remember you. Once again, feeling free to pause the experiment now to write out what you heard before we move on. All right. And now go ahead and look over your list of people who mean the most to you. And if you have the time, repeat this exercise as many times as you feel would be useful for you. Once again, really giving yourself permission to take your time here. And if you choose to repeat the exercise with more people from your list at this point, just go ahead and pause the experiment before moving on. Okay, and now let's take some time to reflect on your experiences during this experiment. So, first, if you ever wondered about the people you care most about, now you have a list of their names. Is there one thing that you could do today to let one person on your list know just how much you care about them, how much they mean to you? After all, these are the people who will remember you, the people who are going to tell stories about you and the life that you lived. And as you reflect on your experience and maybe what you wrote down, what do you make of what you heard these people say about you during this experiment? Now, in addition to what they did say, it can also often be really useful to reflect on what you didn't hear these people say. So, for instance, are there any differences between what you heard these people say about you and the types of concerns that you spend a lot of your typical day worrying about or striving for? And once again, possibly taking some time to write down any observations that are coming to mind and pausing the experiment until you've finished writing. Okay. And as we bring this experiment to an end and you transition to the rest of your day, see if you can become increasingly aware of how your behavior in each moment may or may not be moving you towards this life that you truly want to live. Which specific behaviors feel like they're moving you towards a more connected, a more open, values based way of living? And which behaviors feel like they're taking you away from this kind of a life? What specific tiny changes might you make, even starting today, that would begin moving you towards this life worth remembering?